I'm Dr. Michael Krasny. I'm pleased to be with you from the studio of KQED Radio, where I broadcast each morning, a program called Forum. And that's an important thing to mention because there's a lot in my book that comes out of the experience of being an interviewer and meeting some extraordinary and illustrious people. I'm also a professor of literature, and the book I've written is called Let There Be Laughter. And it's a hilarious book. It is really a very funny book. Does that sound self-serving? But it's true. And it's a book that will tell you about things you hadn't even imagined with respect to Jewish humor, Jewish jokes. It's midrashic, and it goes into explications of what we find in terms of Judaism and Jewishness both in the jokes that we tell, in the stories that we tell, and we really understand through this book the link between storytelling and laughter, which is so much a part of Jewish tradition. So here I am in my Hamish studio trying to sell you on the fact that you ought to really invite me to your city and your speaking engagement or whatever it may be. There's an added thing that I have to include with this because, well, the people in the Jewish Book Council said it would be important to include, and that is that I've done a number of evenings of Jewish humor with a great deal of success. I've even mentored some young Jewish comics, so I'd certainly like to do this alone if you want to have me, but I also could make it into a night of Jewish humor where you get some local comics and everything, and they thought that would be a good selling point. And that's what I'm doing, really, is I'm selling myself. Working in public radio, I'm not used to that, by the way. But let's talk about Jewish jokes for just a minute, because in communicating about Jewish jokes, some of them are transparent and the meaning doesn't even have to be explained, particularly to Jews, like the famous joke about the Jewish scientist who is being given a knighthood by Her Majesty the Queen. He's kneeling with a bunch of other people who are getting knighted. He's got a yarmulke on. She goes and she says, "Why is this knight different from all other knights?" Now, this doesn't have to be explained to Jews. On the other hand, there are jokes like the story, a very charming story about a man in the 21st century walking with his son, and somebody comes up to him and says, "What a good-looking boy you have." And he says, "Thank you." And he says, "What's his name?" He says, "His name is Shlomo." "Shlomo," the stranger says. "What kind of name is Shlomo?" He says, "Well, he's named after his dead grandfather, whose name was Scott." So that may need some explanation, but perhaps not to real Jews who understand the way naming is done over the dead and so forth. There are some of these jokes, though, that are much more subtle and really need to be nuanced and need to be drawn out and extracted, much in the way I do when, say, I teach a work of literature, whether it's fiction or whether it's poetry or whether it's a novel or a play. And so that's what I bring to the table, and I hope that we can meet. Thank you so much.